Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode is about the Shadow Sorcerer. I love the Sorcerer class, and the Shadow Sorcerer gives me all the dark things that I want. It's a very fun subclass. The class itself is very cool. There's a lot of fun to be had in this spec. So, if you like what we do here, please like, share, subscribe. We are growing, and it's all because of you guys. Thank you so much. Please keep commenting. We'd love to hear from you. We love to see the combinations of classes that you make with mixing with races and backgrounds and things like that. You're always coming up with really cool stuff that really just gets me so amped for some of these classes. It's really great to see. I really love it. So we're going to jump into the Sorcerer right now. The Shadow Sorcerer came out in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, so it's one of the older source books at this point. You'll notice that Laudna in Critical Role Campaign 3 is a mixture of the Undead Patron Warlock and Shadow Sorcerer. So at this point, I don't know exactly where she is with levels and dividing those, but you might start to begin seeing some of those things come up, and how they affect what she is and how she uses them is going to be really, really interesting. So, first and foremost, I give you a cool flavor text as to what kind of makes your Shadow Sorcerer feel like a Shadow Sorcerer. They list them as quirks. They're very, very cool. I hope you incorporate some of them. It's a very interesting way to help bring your character into the forefront. One of them is you are always icy cold to the touch, which is cool. When you are asleep, you don't appear to breathe, though you must still breathe to survive. Remember, you're not dead. You're not undead. You're just part of the Shadowfell influence that has touched you in some sort of way, giving you your sorcerer ability. You barely bleed even when badly injured. That is a very cool one. I think that's very interesting, especially when you use some of the later abilities that are going to come up. Your heart beats once per minute. The event sometimes surprises you. I think that's cool. I think it'd be also interesting to describe it as you could see like the veins just kind of fill and move slowly through your face or your hands or whatever, especially when you're casting spells or something, and it gives you this real creep factor that you can really work into what you're doing. You have trouble remembering living creatures, and corpses should be treated differently. Depending on where you are, that could be interesting, especially considering what your background might be or who the other members of your party might be. If you have a necromancy wizard around, yeah, that can make some cool, interesting concepts, especially if you consider the corpses to be more valuable or significantly valuable. It could very well influence how you deal with your party. The last one is you blinked once last week, which is kind of okay, but I don't think you'll really be focusing on what your eyes do. At least that's not something that comes up normally when I roleplay. But the other things are very cool and can be incorporated into help bringing your character to the front. All sorcerers have a level 1 ability that is in conjunction with their sorcerer's origin. The Shadow Sorcerer gains Eyes of the Dark. This gives you dark vision to a range out to 120 feet. If you already have dark vision, it will overlap that. It won't add to your range, whatever. It'll just keep it at 120. So if you don't have dark vision, this will give you that if you feel you really desperately need it. Again, I'm a little on the fence about how great dark vision is, because if you read it by definition, it doesn't really work out the way people play it, but nobody ever plays it the way it's written by definition. So understanding where you are and how by the book your DM is a little important. Ultimately, you do get to see further. It's valuable, especially when you're trying to give yourself advantage, because if you have further dark vision than anything else, it cannot see you at all. So that would give you unseen attacker advantage. So keep that in mind when casting those spells, but also keep in mind how far 120 feet actually is. There is a rider to Eyes of the Dark, and it happens at 3rd level. When you hit 3rd level, you gain access to the Darkness spell. This doesn't count towards your spells known, and you always have it ready and available to you. You can cast it 2 ways. First and foremost, you can cast it using a spell slot, the traditional way you would casting a spell, or you can spend 2 sorcery points to cast it. If you spend 2 sorcery points to cast it, you can see through the darkness created by the spell effect. This is a very strong ability. If you play a lot of warlocks, you've seen this before with your combination of darkness and devil sight. As a shadow sorcerer, this gives you the availability to stay back out of combat, or at least out of the melee area, and keep yourself shrouded in darkness and be able to cast spells and be able to be an unseen attacker, granting yourself advantage. It can be very useful. It can be very creative to use this as a distraction. If you have other party members that can see through magical darkness, like a warlock that has devil sight, this will be a great combination move for the both of you to use, and it gains you a lot of advantage because nothing can really see through magical darkness unless it has devil sight or it happens to be a devil specifically with that ability. As a shadow sorcerer, you also gain access to Strength of the Grave at level 1. This is a very great defensive ability for you, considering that you have the smallest hit die possible. You are very fragile and you have to keep that in mind. The way it works is your existence in a twilight state between life and death makes you difficult to defeat. When damage reduces you to 0 HP, you can make a charisma saving throw. The DC is 5 plus the damage taken. On a success, you instead drop to 1 hit point. You can't use this feature if you are reduced to 0 HP by a critical hit or radiant damage. After this saving throw succeeds, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. Early on, this can be a lifesaver. It can really make a difference, especially on level 1, 2 stories where that's where you're starting out and you have a lot of difficult things to survive. One arrow can take you out. You are a very fragile character class. So it's very beneficial to have that. It reinforces this like state of in between life and death, this like really ghoulish kind of a figure to you. Remember, you're not undead, but this does mirror undead fortitude almost perfectly. The fact that it's a charisma save is very beneficial to you because as a sorcerer, charisma will definitely be your highest stat. So keep that in mind. It's going to be great when you need it. Do not forget you have it. That's the biggest issue with abilities like this, because you go through long periods of time where you don't have to use it, so you might forget it's there. But keep that in mind, because when you need it and it can bring you back to life, it is going to it's going to feel awesome. B, it's gonna make you feel just like you've done something incredible and like you've survived something you definitely should not have, and playing that out is going to be really important. I encourage people that do end up using abilities like this, or like the half-orc's ability, to do the same thing, not to immediately just pop back up and get into what you're doing. Take a moment and weigh your options, because it's easy for you to lay there still and pretend that you're dead and wait for a better opportunity to do more than maybe one attack or something. You know, weigh those options. Try and be a little strategic with coming back to life, especially in combat, and that'll make a very big difference in how you play. At 6th level, you gain access to the most iconic Shadow Sorcerer ability. It is the Hound of Ill Omen. If you've ever seen Supernatural, the show, before, the best way I can describe summoning it is like when Crowley pulled out his Hellhound to protect Sam and Dean against another Hellhound. It is a monstrous beast. It is very dope. It uses a direwolf stat block with a couple of changes. It is a medium beast, not a large beast, which, I mean, it can go either way. It's still big enough to be scary. It appears with a number of temporary hit points equal to half of your sorcerer level, so it's a little bit beefier than normal. It can move through other creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain. The Hound takes 5 force damage if it ends its turn inside an object. At the start of its turn, the Hound automatically knows its target's location. If the target was hidden, it is no longer hidden from Hound. Invisible, whatever it is, summon this bad boy. That Hound will chase it down no matter where it is, because it just knows. The Hound appears in an unoccupied space of your choice within 30 feet of the target. Roll initiative for the Hound. On its turn, it can only move towards its target by the most direct route, and it can use its action only to attack the target. The Hound can make opportunity attacks, but only against its target. And additionally, when the target is within 5 feet of the Hound, it has disadvantage on any spell you use against it. And remember, you use this as a bonus action. So it will chew up anything you were trying to do, especially like quicken spell and things like that. So try and wait maybe till the second turn to try and implement this. This is awesome. It's great for a number of good reasons. Once you have it out, you can try and really burn through legendary resistance of bosses. It makes that very easy to combat because you can do something great with some of the new spells that are out there. Once the Hound of Ill Omen is out, the target has disadvantage on any saving throws it makes against spells you cast. So if you quicken Mind Sliver and then hit it with a spell, granted, most bosses will have legendary resistance or magical resistance. So that brings the resistance back down to a regular straight up roll. But if you quicken spell Mind Sliver, you get to subtract the result of that Mind Sliver from the roll, greating your opportunity to hit with some of the more devastating save or suck spells. Things like Hold Person or Hold Monster can be devastating if you cast that on a big bad or you're able to do so. It's awesome. It feels good. A lot of people are worried about the HP later on in higher levels. Understand the Direwolf itself is gonna have to eat up attacks to die. It's better for it to die than for your party to take any of those hits. Always try and position it behind or in a different way, so that way the DM's never going to give it the opportunity to hit an AoE with you and the Direwolf. That's the best way to keep it alive and keep it going. Also, the Direwolf can end its turn inside an object or a creature. That's the best way to keep it alive, realistically, because that 5 force damage, although it'll happen every turn, he can pop out, do the damage, go back in, and he won't take a hit that'll take it out in one shot, and he can still provide that disadvantage. It's very tactical, but understand, you're sending out a hellhound. Like it's basically this monstrous beast that's gonna, when it hits, it's gonna add additional damage to you. So your damage is going to go up. It's going to help you with anything else you're doing. And if you really want to make it difficult for it to survive things, start throwing on that Mind Sliver and other abilities that debilitate it. And it's awesome. It is not a concentration. So you can throw that. You can throw Bane on. And you can start dumping whatever else you want. There's a lot of viability for cool stuff for you to do. And it eases that pressure of legendary resistance being an issue, or advantage on saving throws being an issue. This gives you that chance to really hit them with spells that you couldn't normally hit, period. At 14th level, you gain access to Shadow Walk. You gain the ability to step from one shadow into another. When you are in dim light or darkness, as a bonus action, you can teleport up to 120 feet to an unoccupied space you can see that is also in dim light or darkness. Here's something that people probably assume is just an easy escape or jumping in and out of something. A lot of the times people will just wait until they absolutely need to do this. Sometimes being a little bit proactive with an ability like this is very beneficial. There is no limit to how many times you can cast this. If you're in a big enough area, 120 feet is a huge distance. Fighting a boss, fighting any group of people, start out on one, cast whatever it is you're going to do, cantrips, spells, and then teleport to a complete opposite side of the map. That's going to cause confusion a little bit, and then now you can direct the troops a different way. Or be bait in like a very strategic kind of a way. If you're playing with another character that uses darkness as a spell, like a warlock with Devil Sight, and he's on one side, you can put that darkness on the other and keep bouncing between the two of them, and then the enemy has no way to tell where you are. It's a fun way to be very, very mischievous and very, very mobile on the combat, on the battlefield. It's cool. I say use it all the time. You move at 30 feet, so if you teleport and then move afterwards, that's 150 feet you can move, as long as it's within that range where it has dim light or darkness. Keeping your ranged outside of 60 feet, very beneficial for you if you have things that meet that range requirement, because you get advantage on your attack rolls. Keep that in mind, and remember, when people are starting to close in on you, that's 30 to 60 feet they have to get towards you. That's easy a way to get out. At 14th level, you are so elusive, basically no one will melee hit you, period. And that's a huge advantage to you because of that. At this level, you're so strong because of that ability that it just really gives you this incredible viability to stay out of range of AoEs, stay close enough to your party when you need to be, and get far away from them after that. Just keeping yourself distance so that way you don't get sucked into AoE damages or spell effects that channel an area, or like a 30-foot cone fear spell. You can avoid that completely because you'll be that far away. It's very tactical. It's very smart. If you need to save someone, you can teleport in, drop a potion down somebody's throat, and then just run away. And then when it comes back, teleport to the other side of the map and lay waste. Like, whatever it is, you have these options. This is another thing that makes you very good and very strong the more creative you are. Take a moment, look at the battlefield. That's going to be your best advantage. Understand what this means in role-playing. You can jump from different areas and throw your voice or just talk and just really intimidate someone. You see something in a balcony that's far away, you can use like dancing lights and just snuff out a candle and then poof, turn right in there. You know, you can just teleport right in there, so you can see. It gives you this great availability to be almost like walls don't really exist to you. And that's a very scary thought for something that looks and is as scary and is touched by darkness as a shadow sorcerer. So that's very fun, and you can use it constantly. So I really implore you to abuse it and be as fun with it as possible. The final ability for the shadow sorcerer is Umbral Form. Starting at 18th level, you can spend 6 sorcery points as a bonus action to transform yourself into a shadowy form. You have resistance to all damage except force and radiant damage. And you can move through other creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain. You take 5 force damage if you end your turn inside of an object. You remain in this form for a minute. It ends early if you are incapacitated, or if you die, or if you dismiss it as a bonus action. Understand this, even with resistance at level 18 to basically everything, you're going to be better off taking that 5 force damage. You are. In a situation where you need this to survive, it's better to use this earlier than later. Understand at 18th level, you're consuming your lower level spell slots for sorcery points. So getting the 6 shouldn't be that big of an issue for you. The reason why I say you're better off taking the 5 force damage is no matter what you do, you can sink into the ground you're standing on and move underneath. And once you sink in, you technically did not leave the range where they could attack you, because you're still within 5 feet of them. You're just underneath and they can't see you. And once they can't see you, they can't opportunity strike you. So you're better off staying down and away and taking that 5 points of damage, popping up, doing whatever it is, going down under, and taking that 5 points of damage. You'll make every single saved in order to keep your spells up. Your concentration saves because it's only 5 damage, and you'll always make that. So it's a very good use. It's very cool to be this horroring ghost that just appears from the walls or from the ground and attacks its enemies. It makes you feel like a bad guy, which is really what it does. It is scary. It is very cool to use thematically, but ultimately at this point, I really wouldn't be using my sorcery points for things like that. I would definitely want to keep my Hound of Ill Omen going up multiple turns if I had to. But in a do or die scenario, when you start to see people being damaged in that half HP, and at 18th level half HP, once you hit that point fast, you know it's going to go down quick after that. So being very on top of that and aware of your other characters is going to give you the best opportunity to make the most out of this ability. Our final thoughts. The Shadow Sorcerer incorporates all of the great things that I love about being creepy. Loving the darkness. Being a charisma caster means you can bump up your intimidation and you can be very unnerving to the people around you. The flavor text about how your powers affected your life and who you are with the quirks that you get really enforces that dark tradition within you, and you get so much fun things to do. It's awesome. The sorcerer itself with the meta magic gives you a lot of customization, and you can do fun things with it that you can't do with other spellcasters. It's so much fun. The higher level stuff is great. The availability to teleport in and out of darkness is very, very valuable. It gives you a lot of mobility, elusiveness, and it gives you this great way to just kind of jump and leap through things. You know, when certain obstacles are no longer obstacles to you, it's such a freeing thing in a game, because it's not that you're broken as a character, it's just now you can really think in ways that you couldn't before. There's a ledge that just enough room for one person to stand on, teleport right there, throw down some spells, move over to another area. Like, you can do a lot of cool stuff. It feels good to do that stuff, and it really separates this class from other classes because of those abilities to use those skills. And that's one of the things that Sorcerer really does well, is it makes every single subclass feel so different from the other ones, even though ultimately you're just a full caster. It's fun, it's cool, you get a lot of great things that you can do with it. I love this class, and the Shadow Sorcerer really brings it to the forefront, and I couldn't be happier with it. I'm so glad it exists. It's so much fun to play, and it's great. If you watched this long, thank you so much. Please like, share, subscribe, and thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.